Okay. You ready to hop out of bed here and do this episode with me, Jessi? Hi everyone.
Hello.
We are in episode 9 for Dinosaurwrld here. Still in the middle of summer. We got a little bit of watering to do to get us started, but the main reason we brought you guys all back to watch this episode again is that we have kind of an exciting story to share with everybody. Jessi and
A
I
major event happened for us.
Yes, a major event. We relived the magic of a movie from our past that we hadn't seen since we were together many, many years ago. What we are referring to is the 1995 coming-of-age story known as Angus. It is a teen kind of overcoming a bully story that we watched just recently together to kind of get reaccustomed with this, because this movie has a lot of themes that we both felt were not healthy for the messaging wise, some poor writing, and some other stuff that is going to really require us to kind of unpack it and really let everybody know kind of a review of this difficult movie, I would say.
We rented it really wanting something lighthearted along the lines of like a heavyweight, which is a classic film, but it definitely didn't hit those notes whatsoever, and it left us both in crisis.
Right.
Really.
It did. And looking at the cover, it kind of had that heavyweights feel, because this is a story
Mhm.
about an overweight teenager struggling with bullying and finding himself in this world. And I suppose we should give a little bit of the backstory for how we came about this. We saw this movie together with in my hometown. So we're, as you guys who've heard the last episode, I had been visiting Jessi several times before she had an opportunity to visit me, and we went to my local movie rental store. This is a little bit before Blockbuster had kind of conquered all of the mom and pop stores. So we went in to look for a movie to rent, just like, as a couple would do in order to for stuff to do. We picked out a kind of a stack of movies. I know I selected Angus.
You picked Angus, yeah. You had that honor.
Yep, I picked Angus, and if I recall correctly, what you picked is you asked the front desk for access to the adult film section and picked out at least 2 movies from that. And instead, I went with a 1995 coming-of-age story about a fat kid dealing with bullies, trying to find himself in the world, and we expected something totally different than what we got. Right? It was not this.
We were sold a bill of fucking goods with this one.
Exactly. I thought that we would get
bait and switch.
Tremendous bait and switch. I thought that we would get some kind of positive, uplifting message about asserting yourself in the face of adversity and bullies, and really trying to become your own person, regardless of.
You were really looking for that like after school special moment, huh?
I was hoping it would be that, and when you read the back and some of the reviews that are out there, it certainly seems like you're going to get that kind of movie. But we got something totally different, and it was not as we expected. So Angus is a kind of an overweight kid in the mid 90s. I'd say it's set in probably 95 or so, and he is a freshman in high school. We all know that this is a very difficult time, and if you don't look exactly normal and you run into other people who kind of call you out on that.
Now you're falling into the Angus trap that we've spent like the last 48 hours criticizing, so.
Correct. I know I'm saying some of the same language on it, but
I think this film had a bad influence on you.
Yeah, good point. But I'm forced to speak the language of the movie itself, which is being normal is like a big theme of it. This is what Angus wants. There's multiple times where he makes lines about like, I just want to be normal, right? I don't want to be
outbursts.
Yeah, he has outbursts about all this. But we're supposed to sympathize with this character, right? He's the protagonist. He's quirky. He's smart.
Supposedly.
Yeah, and he has to overcome some challenges.
Like, basically all we learn about this kid, though, is he supposedly likes science.
Right.
He plays football. and he's, which we'll get into later, absolutely obsessed with this girl from his school. Those are his only character traits aside from self-loathing. Period.
We're supposed to somehow sympathize with him for this problem, because what ends up happening and why we can't sympathize with him is very early in the movie he ends up interacting with his bully, who's played by James Van Der Beek, and he is taunted with some very simple fat kid jokes. Like, I believe the antagonist says something like, "Isn't Angus a cow?" Right? You know, like nothing very
An
intense.
innocuous,
Yeah.
like he was like inquiring about a breed of cow innocently.
A total tongue-in-cheek joke that really meant nothing, and it could have been taken very playfully. And what's Angus's response to this? He punches him in the face and breaks the character's nose. Flash forward for another couple years later, they're slightly older, and they're on the football field, and the antagonist...
Well, you neglected to mention that he assaults the supposed antagonist 3 times within the first 3 minutes of the film.
And yes,
kind of pivotal.
correct. It happens very fast, and we're just getting now to that second assault, because it's kind of almost like a montage. We move ahead to a little bit further into his youth, where they're sitting there at the by the football field, and the antagonist says to him, you know, "Do you want to play football with us? Okay, you can be the field," which is a joke that doesn't make sense. And you'd think that Angus...
dumb.
Yeah, it's so dumb. You'd think that Angus would say something like, "Oh, what? That doesn't make any sense," and, like, you know,
Yeah, if he had
counter.
it, like, if he had an ounce of like mental prowess, he could have put that kid in his place so easily with that. But no, he resorted to violence immediately.
Yep. So in front of what's the character's name is, like, Rick or something like that, Rick Sanford, and in front of all of his toadies and friends, including the love interest that we're going to get into, the basically the popular kid and antagonist has a girlfriend that Angus is obsessed with. But in front of all of them, he throws this football at him in response to this joke that doesn't make sense, and breaks his nose again. And the toadies all go, "Wow, you broke his nose," is a common theme. So now we have multiple times.
It's like a running joke.
Yeah.
You know.
And this is supposed to be our
And
protagonist.
he's not been held accountable for it once either.
Right. So right away, we're struggling with sympathizing with this person, because you don't respond to these types of words with violence, or at least that's what we've been indoctrinated in. I'm just going to catch this last fish, and we'll head back and check out town. But after all of that, we start to flash forward to their current time, and I think it's worth noting that, like, there's a pivotal scene where they see Angus is a football player, and obviously the James Van Der Beek character is also a football player, and he plays the quarterback in this. Angus is the center, and what kind of highlights their conflict here is they're playing. They're in a pivotal moment in the football game, and let's head back. The quarterback throws an interception, right? Typical thing. The roles reversed. We have to chase it down, and Angus is actually able to cause a cause a fumble, which is then recovered by the quarterback,
the enemy James Van Der Beek character.
He recovers,
who then proceeds to make a touchdown.
Right. But this whole time, Angus is basically laying there sulking. Yeah. And slips into his narrator voice, going like, "Wow," and of course he's going to get all the credit for this because he's the big star, and no one's going to acknowledge that I caused the fumble and brought this, which is not how you usually react to your teammate or your team winning. So he lays there while everybody goes and celebrates with the quarterback,
wallowing in self-pity, which is all this kid ever does.
Yes. So after that, the seeds of that conflict are really well established. That basically the antagonist has all these advantages over him because he has good looks. He has the love of the girl that Angus wants to be with, and he's a popular kid, right? But why should we feel bad for Angus when he's the one that's been assaulting this person? Like, I would think that you have every right to be bullied by you've been you've been mistreating him your entire life, you know? Angus basically is pining for a popular girl who happens to be Vanderbeek's character's girlfriend, right? And that he's basically lusting over this girl, and he kind of ogles her in various scenes, but has no courage to be able to talk.
Objectivize her.
Yeah.
Well, like, okay. What is the first thing he says about her that made me go, whoa, what the fuck?
Oh, very important. While there,
Yeah.
he says that she's the kind of girl that makes you ache.
Which is gross,
Yeah.
because, dude, this kid's like 13. Let's not talk about fucking aching.
Correct.
Second of all, then he says,
He
this
says
girl's just put on this planet to torture me.
Yeah, the only reason that this girl exists is to make me feel bad. Like, woman exists for man's enjoyment kind of thing. That she's literally just an object of his desire. And that's all he could see her as. He really just has this physical lust for this girl. It has no way to actualize that or explain it in any way because he's too shy to actually talk to her. So right away, objectifying her in this way is working more and more against us sympathizing with Angus in any possible way. It can't just be Angus struggling with this problem by himself. So he has a friend that we get introduced to pretty early in the movie. He's kind of this red-haired character, and his job is sort of to support Angus in this struggle. His character doesn't seem to have a lot of motivations by itself, other than to basically bounce these Angus's situation off of him and to articulate the problem. He's definitely an empty character.
The ginger kid is weirdly hypersexual too. It's like, I don't know if they were just going for like typical 90s like raunchy humor, but it gets really fucking weird.
He is obsessed with sexuality like a lot of maybe 14-year-old boys kind of would be as they're trying to figure this all out. And yeah, there's a lot of kind of over-the-top humor with that, but it's done in this very cringy way. Well, I think it's worth trying to get to the point where we can establish some of the conflict. So you know some of the tropes of, like, the antagonist bully is going to put the protagonist in an awkward position where he has to basically be shamed in front of everybody. So what ends up happening to formulate the conflict of this story is that they're going to have the winter dance. It's like a formal ball that they're having, and you know.
And long story short, the old trope of the loser kid gets nominated for like the prom king, happens to Angus, and guess who just so happens to have been elected the queen? Of course, the girl he's like creepily obsessed with.
And this was all orchestrated on purpose by the antagonist to basically shame Angus, put him in a situation where he doesn't have the ability to, you know, he's not popular, so he's just really being put up as a character of ridicule in this. So what Angus can choose to pursue that and go to the dance, or he can give up on it. But he's built up such an importance of like lusting for this character that he decides he's going to go to the dance, right? And therefore he has to make preparations for that. His grandfather, who's an important character in the movie, takes him for dancing lessons. Him and his ginger friend talk ad nauseum about how he's going to win the girl by going to this dance,
which makes no sense. Like, he makes no effort into anything social. Just, I don't know why so many 90s movies like place the importance of like learning to dance and dance lessons like for these kids that are like loser kids that are going to a school dance, because nobody ever gave a shit about that. It was just a popularity contest. No one's like, dude, he really fumbled the box step.
Exactly.
You know?
No shit. And the 5-minute theatrics of this type of voted for forced dance is not something that's going to make a big impact on anybody's lives. Like, he's putting a huge inflated importance on this on this interaction because he thinks that I think he believes that he can basically win the girl with this and to get over his rival. And so what do they do? Well, they practice, right? And his friend, his hypersexualized friend, does a few strange things. Like he actually procures a kind of Spencer's gift level blow up doll that he dresses somehow.
Which this is like one of the main things in the movie too. This is like weirdly like harped upon.
They get this doll and he's able to the friend is able to dress it up, which is already kind of weird. Like, where did you get access to this girl clothing and other things like that? And they
how did you transport this item in broad daylight to your friend's house, get it in the door, etc., etc. Perhaps we're overthinking these points, but
no, it came off weird when we're watching. We're like, wow, why are they
fucking weird?
Why are they doing this? And
that's the scene that took me out when we originally watched it, and I'm like, dude, I can't do this. Like, I'd rented adult films, but just this ginger kid fucking perving out on a blow-up doll was way too much for my psyche. Just no.
And rightfully so. I mean, they decide to basically practice dancing with it, so they have this like intimate, like slow dance where he's holding the blow-up doll, and of course our
kid came prepared with his mom's camcorder.
Yeah, he records this whole scene to film him dancing with this doll. As like, it's like, well, this is what jocks do. They practice and they rehearse things by watching film. So why don't we record this and get this ready? And the reason why we're sharing this piece of information is this is core to the conflict resolution of the movie. Remember, now there is a film of Angus dancing with a proxy of the girl that he wants to be with. As a blow-up doll, and like not like a real kind of like sex doll. We're talking like literally a Spencer's Gift novelty doll of a girl.
I think you could still fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, and
so let's not get too into the intricacies of the blow-up doll, but that would just be my guess.
And you pick up some vibes like that because of his friend being so overtly sexual that you feel like there may have been something like that has happened, like just off camera before he brings it in. You pick up that vibe. So they dance, they get their little practice in, and this film has basically just been saved. But once they go back to class, and Angus has to deal with the fact that, like, in whatever 2-3 weeks he needs to get all the dancing steps ready and everything must be in order for him to.
That's so important. The technical aspect of the dance is like what all those kids are watching for.
Right. And somehow, like, they just make this important. Once again, written by people that are like way detached from how kids really experience, like, being that kind of teenager at that year. Upon going back to class, and fails to be able to even talk to his love interest while they're in the hallway.
There's like a weird water fountain gag that we hated and saw coming a mile away. Like, all of the slapstick attempts in this film are just god awful. Like, everything sucks.
It takes you out of it how bad the slapstick is, and it's like it doesn't fit with the rest of the themes of the movie.
So many things just like kill your suspension of disbelief throughout the course of this film. It's shocking, really. But
well, what ends up happening is that the ginger kid is eventually broken down by the gang of bullies. He runs his mouth at them. I think he actually challenges them by saying, like, Angus is going to destroy you with his awesome dance moves, and he's just so great because his whole.
And this kid has like so there's some weird energy from him towards Angus, like
absolutely.
You get like a weird sense of longing.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like there's some sort of vibe there that
like he's figuring things out. You can tell for himself.
The friend loses to the bullies after challenging them verbally. There's a few other exchanges that we can kind of gloss over, but what ends up happening is the bullies extort the friend to give them the video that we had just talked about. They don't know about the video, but they're
Yeah, he gives it right up.
yeah, you need to give us something that we can use about this. This is serious. And the friend, rather than sit there and tell the bullies like something that's easy or just like a minor embarrassing story to placate them, he decides to completely fork over this tape because he got punished and thrown into like a garbage and he got his arm broken basically by accident.
Yeah, they place him in the dumpster and like gently like hook his jacket onto a locker door, lift like keeping him suspended. Like nothing that crazy happens. It's not like the kid's in Guantanamo Bay and has like no fucking choice but to give up his best friend. It doesn't take much, and he goes nuclear with it right away with the tape.
He absolutely breaks.
He doesn't even think of any middle ground there.
No,
you know?
No, he's terribly disloyal to turn that tape in. But once the bullies have access to the tape, they're going to you know where this story's going. For all the tropes, they're going to be saving that tape to show it to the group, to the class while he's up there doing his ritual of the winter ball. But we aren't quite there yet. We know that that's coming and that he's been sold out by this character.
Let's talk about the grandpa.
I was just about to get there. Yes, there is a sympathetic character in Angus's life. You know, he has two family members that we see. There's of course his mother.
One's useless, and there's no character traits.
Right.
Like really shown or nothing. Just some weird like lingering glances between mother and son are all we really get from Kathy Bates and Angus on screen.
There's supposed to be some kind of endearing chemistry between those two, but we never really get it. It's almost like a lot of the Kathy Bates scenes were like cut out or something, that there's like something
like she
missing
was on
there.
set for like 48 hours and they just got what they could get.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So so there wasn't much there, but the grandfather there is a connection with, and there's lots of scenes where Angus is sort of confiding in his grandfather about this struggle. I'm just the fat kid. You know, people don't like me and I'm so not cool, and yet I have to go to this dance. And the father or the grandfather keeps lining up with this like, well, you know what I say, screw him. He just hits him with this cliche that like, you know, don't worry about what other people say, which is the proper message for this person who's struggling to find his place in the world. But the grandfather almost has this weird like side story about being like narcoleptic. So he's like passing out in a lot of these conversations. And that ends up becoming a theme a little bit later.
We need to mention it for, later.
For later, right. Grandfather's story is supposed to kind of parallel Angus's because he is also different and engaged in something that is considered not normal. It's a shoehorned in part of the story, but that he is in love with a younger woman. He's in his 70s, and this woman is in her mid-40s. And they're getting married during all of this. And
Angus has a real problem with his grandfather, who like pretty much does everything for him, having love in his life.
Exactly. It's like, Grandpa, that's not normal. And like everything is based on this normal view. And that is where the messaging is so challenging in this movie.
Angus is weird and like limited version of normality. Like this the observation that I had made was this kid has like severe main character energy. Nothing else matters aside of him. Everything is a reflection of himself. Exactly. Like there's just nothing else.
Well, it's almost narcissistic. Like all that matters is that
it is totally. He's like totally has narcissist energy. It's all about Angus.
Yep. All that matters is that a girl that he is lusting over, and the reason why he's lusting over her, and he gives it away in an early line in the movie. He basically says, she's the kind of girl that makes you ache. And I know that this girl was put on the earth simply to make me feel bad, to torment me, which is like such
the use of ache is gross, A.
Correct.
Like this kid's 13. Ache. B, like, she's only been put on this earth to tease and torture you. Like, that's not okay.
No, it's...
I don't know where he gets this messaging from.
it's the typical chauvinistic, misogynistic, if you will, viewpoint that woman exists for man's enjoyment, and he internalizes that, and since he's never talked to this girl,
or made any effort to get to know anything about her other than literally in a scene with the gross ginger kid using a fucking laser pointer to go over like critiques of like specific things about her body. It's so sick because, spoiler alert, he has like a creepy framed photograph of this girl like on his computer desk.
And it's like, how did he get that? It's like a blown up picture, like from a yearbook.
Like her yearbook,
but it's like huge, and he's able to get it on the projector, and they sit there with a laser pointer, and they go on about like all the elements of her body that they are literally lusting over. And the actor that plays her is actually the girl from Jurassic Park. So his whole motivation is sexual. He's literally just in love with this person's body without having any without spending any amount of time to get to know her or learn anything about her. So right off the bat, that's not sympathetic at all. Like,
Angus is an incel, right?
Yes. He is taking the incel line of like, I can never have this. There's so many problems with me. I'm tormented by this girl, and
even though he's put zero effort into fuck all.
But once again, time marches forward. There's going to be a dance, and he must continue to prepare for this. So dancing lessons are done. Lots of conversations with the grandpa. The grandpa takes him to get a suit, and of course he can't fit into this tuxedo correctly. So he decides that he wants to get my tuxedo has to be black. Like, he has this entire vision of like how exactly it has to be, and instead they give him the one that's plum, and it's like, I can't wear that.
Throws a fucking tantrum. Yep. That's all the kid ever does.
The grandpa's genuinely trying to help him get through all this, and does a lot of stuff to get him through it. But you can tell
the grandpa's like exasperated at this point.
He is.
And he's just like this long suffering, just trying to write the course for this kid to no avail. The kid's fucking ungrateful and just criticizes the grandfather constantly.
It's like painful to watch how mean he is to the grandpa with all of this, who's one of the only characters that seems to be that's somebody that we can sympathize with. So the story marches on, and the grandpa subplot begins to get closer toward the end. Yeah. Starts to get closer to being solved, which is of course that he's getting married to a younger person, as we said. They go they prepare for the wedding, and in a long speech that Angus gives to the grandpa, basically talking about once again rehashing like his tremendous attraction and how he pines for this one girl. While listening to that, grandpa fucking dies during the speech, and like passes out.
What was our note? Like, that was grandpa's last activity, was hearing this like narcissistic like rant from his like ungrateful grandchild. Mm-hmm. As he's going to the light and the phosphenes are exploding in his eyes, that what he hears is the like, I just need one moment with her, and then he dies, and he dies like abruptly, and of course the Angus tries to wake him up to no avail, and rather than like run down and call 911 or scream to the entire wedding party for help, he just comes downstairs crying and looks at the he stops midway down the staircase, makes eye contact with the mom, and just fucking dramatically starts crying, which like I haven't laughed so hard watching something in a really long time.
I know, we both couldn't breathe. Yeah.
And like the mom kind of like smiles in acknowledgement, like she just assumed, guess my dad's died.
Yep.
You know,
that it's just over.
no
and
words are exchanged whatsoever.
and he's been dead for 30 seconds. Like someone could have done compressions, could have done all kinds of stuff. There's some mouth to mouth. There's people could have been on the horn, 911, all of this. It's all dropped. None of that matters. He's gone. So without him, Angus is supposed to have some kind of epiphany, and it's supposed to be like growing up out of this and realizing that there is no normal, and that Grandpa was right all along, that there's nothing wrong with him, and he's a special, unique boy who is great. But he doesn't actually have that epiphany that way. He sort of comes to that conclusion by himself without really the audience being brought along for it. And this is sort of our main criticism, is not only is the messaging bad, but the writing was awful. Like, shouldn't we have seen something where
writers just phoned it in on this? I mean, my God.
Yeah.
I could have written the scene that was needed.
Right.
To like really fill in the gaps there, but they just opted not to do so.
Yeah.
I could have written that in 5 seconds. But...
Yeah, and for example, we had talked about it. We didn't really introduce this character, but basically, there's a lot of scenes where Angus is with his grandpa in the park. The grandpa doing chess in the park with this guy who's overhearing everything. So in order for him to get over the death of Grandpa, he should be meeting with the friend while they're who he's been playing chess with, to sort of tell him.
It's almost like he goes to tell him that the grandpa's died, but again, there's no words that are said. He just gives the guy a certain look, and he immediately intuits that it means that the grandfather has passed away.
Yep, because he takes the king piece on the chessboard and flips it over, and then rather than what would
stupid
exactly rather than what would have been good writing, where the guy goes, oh, okay, I've heard about all your struggles this whole time,
because this kid has seen, or this guy has seen. And held his tongue the entire time. This kid berating the grandfather, bitching about his life nonstop. This guy's knows what's going on. So there could have been a scene where he's like, look, kid, you really need to get your shit together. And somebody finally sits down and tells Angus what's really what.
Right. Which was,
but that never happens. Which,
of course, the correct message of check your desire. You're caught between positions here by wanting to be normal, yet wanting to also assert yourself. You can't have it both ways. You may want a different kind of girl that has a different motivation, of someone that actually likes you, and instead, none of that happens. The guy walks away, and instead he has another meeting with his ginger friend, who basically, the epiphany comes in the form of him saying, you think you're the only person that wants to be someone else? And it's no shit, we knew that you were also a nerd, or whatever, and gross. So it's
even a lot grosser than Angus, but Angus can't ever see anything outside himself again, so right. It's
this brings us pretty close to the climax that where everyone can see where this is going. They go to the dance. The ginger friend has already turned over the video, like we said earlier in this episode. So they begin the pageantry of this dance sequence, and they meet together, Angus and the love interest, and they exchange a few words about being nervous, and we're supposed to see that the girl suffers from some of the same kind of social anxiety as Angus because of the pressure of being popular, and they head down per the pageantry to kind of introduce themselves as the king and queen of this winter ball. And what happens is, just as predicted, the antagonist's cronies hit play on the stolen video of him dancing with the blow-up doll that the ginger kid had recorded, right? And there's kind of a line in there that's where he basically admits to getting to having a boner over this girl, and yeah,
which again is an uncomfortable, even in watching this as a teen, I was like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
It just, I hated this film.
Me too. And
stop.
We were both really struggling to get through this. because we're getting basically to the climax of this movie. So that plays, and what does it do is it basically really embarrasses the girl, right? Because she's standing up here while this person is kind of professing his intense lustful desire for her in this
Craved,
recorded
like...
yeah in this candid recorded moment that nobody else should have been able to see, right? So everybody laughs, all the bullies have their fun, but she runs off to outside, and Angus follows her in order to kind of console her and to apologize for what had happened. And she tells him that, hey, it's not your fault. You're not the one that did anything wrong. Which is what helps relieve Angus's tension a little bit because, he is the victim of this prank. Let's face it.
Realistically, like I said, if I were that girl, I'd be like, dude, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
what were you doing with that doll?
Are you okay? Like, what's going on with all of that?
Like, why are you weirdly obsessed with me?
Yeah.
And instead of that, she basically says that, like, I suffer from all kinds of problems too, just like you, and just randomly drops that she's bulimic.
Yeah, for no reason, no build up. These two characters haven't interacted prior to this moment. Despite his obsession, this is like the first time they've ever had any kind of meaningful or any conversation, period.
Mm-hmm. And she tells him.
Immediately just says she's bulimic.
But she also mentions she's never told anybody else. So like the proper response.
Angus is just so special. He's like what we would call in writing a Mary Sue character, which is just like he's perceived as special or important by like the characters around him for literally no fucking reason. It's just like a bullshit narrative device. Mm-hmm. Like we're supposed to believe he's this like amazing protagonist that's like overcoming all of this shit, but he just sucks through and through.
Well, he's supposed to seem that he's overcoming it because he drops the metaphor for the entire story whenever he's doing these little stupid science experiments trying to get into what's known as a magnet school where you can go to like this
in a really like low stakes subplot that like no one cares about, period.
Right. But it's served as like a metaphor for his current struggle. So he goes like, whenever a radical external influence is introduced into a homogeneous system, it rejects it. The homogeneous system rejects it as an abnormal thing in this exothermic reaction, and it's all spit out. And he's basically saying that like, I'm not like everyone else, but I want to be, and it causes
following
conflict.
Shane. I'm gonna stalk him.
He's about to go to work.
Like trying to brush me off again. He liked the flower, but then he's like, I don't know you. Like, why are you talking to me?
He straight Clark Kented to Superman as he passed through the door and just instantly ended up in a different outfit. So that was kind of funny.
He's all business now. Yeah. I can't get anywhere with him.
Yeah, this is not your time for him. Hopefully we'll have an event later where you can get to know him a little better. But where were we in this travesty of a film? We're getting near the climax here, right? The story marches onward, and he has a conflict again with his bully in front of everyone at the dance, and it gets a little bit physical. There's some shoving, and first Angus gets punched in the face and breaks like a table, and then he pushes him back and gives him this whole speech of I'm still here, asshole. This is supposed to be the real showstopper. No matter how much you terrorize me, I'm gonna keep coming back because like there's 400 other people here.
I'm like, dude, you antagonized the supposed bully way more throughout the whole film. I kind of like don't even care if you win the fight. I kind of want you to lose.
Mm-hmm. But he wins, and the crowd sort of turns on the bully like you would expect in any of these types of the tropes that are utilized in these types of movies. He then dances with the girl in way beyond just the formal dance. She chooses to dance with them, and there's a little bit of like a revenge gaze thing going on with that.
Yeah.
That she feels upset with the antagonist for basically severely embarrassing her with putting on that video of that candid moment while she was up there, and embarrassed everybody. So instead, they dance, and they do another slow dance to, what was that song that it was? But you're like, this is butchering
It
this
was
song.
Mazzy Star
Right.
Fade Into You, which was like so weirdly out of place and overwrought
Yeah.
for what was going on.
Yeah.
Come on. They had no emotional history whatsoever, and then it's like, I don't know, dude.
Yeah. They dance to that, and then a faster song, and eventually they kind of leave and go. He walks her home,
and they just have like a little goodbye moment. Angus thinks he's like totally won, and she goes in the house, and he like lingers around looking in through her bedroom window in an almost like, I thought it was gonna go I swear I thought it was gonna go the Animal House route.
Yep.
It just randomly out of left field, but thankfully it doesn't. Mercifully, they don't go there, even though it seemed like they were hinting at it, and it was creepy. It's like, go the fuck home, Angus.
Yeah,
You're done.
I thought that was going to happen too, but I think you were right to say that, like, that's like a kind of teen movie that might have been targeting. That's more of the like boner comedy for like of 2 or 3 years of a later target demographic. So they don't do. There's no silhouette scene that that you would expect to happen, but they flirt with it because she is silhouetted in there in the window, and it's sending those
like
vibes.
Weird to hint at that they did that, and like, just knowing what a creep that kid is, that's what he was like going for. But
and the movie ends, and there's no real result other than he says, like, I end up not going to the science school, and I decided to stay here. Yeah,
and we didn't even let's quickly just like say how that subplot got wrapped up. Pretty much was that proprietor of the school or whatever came to Angus's home to interview him, and like, Angus just freaked out and like gave a nonsense speech about
his thesis about like the homogeneous system rejecting the radical. Yeah. And he goes like, maybe if that radical like interloper external force is brave, which is like a totally bizarre thing to say to like in a science realm, because how can any of this be brave, And he basically completely loses the thread with that.
And he gets up and walks out and goes to the dance.
Yes.
And like, his mom just gives him kind of a creepy like smile and like nods like it's all okay, like it's totally fine that he's doing this, and he just runs to the dance.
Yeah.
And then later, like you said, you explained it really well, that it's just like his well, the wrong answer was the right answer. You got into the school or whatever.
That was the test. You stood up to that, and you went and pursued your own self on that. But which of course is the wrong reading. Like, to really be true to himself, he should have gone to the science school and tried to look for like a different kind of girl that that he would have common.
Right?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Apparently, but that's not normal, because what does our character shout all the time? I just want to be normal. And why should we be indoctrinating children in the need to like accrete to what the peers say for how they police one another's sexuality, how they police one another's appearance, and like how is it asserting yourself to say and succumb to that and say like I'm gonna do the normal route of these things? It's almost in line with like how like you and I were different from everyone else. We chose not to follow that path. And Angus, unfortunately, didn't have the strength to follow his own path, and is instead choosing to be just another, quote, normal person, instead of where he has some unique traits that, should have been capitalized on, and that's the real message. The real message is that this message is bad. It's not about being true to yourself. It's about being true to what other people expect of you. Being normal is what matters, because this is how you get the girl. All that matters to him is a sexual attraction to this girl. It's a hormonal driven story. And what we finish it, we're both like, wow, what the fuck? That was extremely unhealthy. That was like so bad. It's not so bad, it's good. It was just bad,
Right.
bad. Like it just hurt.
Yeah.
We were both in pain. And then later on, many years later, Jessi and I start
I
talking
enjoyed
again.
it much more the second time around, just like laughing. But it's the first the cringe factor was so bad the first time that
That we were literally
it
in
was
pain.
physically painful.
Right. Where our thesis that the messaging of this movie is wrong comes in the form of like, what did you do recently, Jess? You decided to look up a bunch of reviews for this movie. So we've got,
And they were like all great. They were mostly like accepting, like, this isn't like the best movie ever, but the message is really heartwarming or something. And it's like, what?
Yeah, they completely missed the point.
Like Ebert loved it.
Yeah.
It's like finally a movie where the like gross fat like loser gets the girl. That's what you took away from this?
No, I couldn't believe those reviews that we read. That if they did watch it, they certainly weren't able to understand a problem with the messaging or anything being off with the story itself. And they just read it as like a typical coming of age story, and that there was nothing wrong with how it went, and that we should have sympathized with Angus the entire time. So I think some of those review people, Jesse, they just phoned it in. They didn't really watch it. They went like, okay, what is this supposed to be? It's a coming of age story.
They're paid shells for...
And it was all of them. You found maybe one critical review out of everything.
Like the overwhelming majority of reviews of this movie were like either like lukewarm to great.
That was upsetting for me, because I thought that it was very obvious that there were...
follow him anyway.
Yeah, maybe something will happen if we follow him. Ooh, you got an event. So did I.
Oh my god.
Nice.
Stalking him really paid off. Up late, huh? He offers me a beer. Are you having like a romantic event with him?
I think so, yeah. Like I said, they're all player sexual, but like it doesn't have to be romantic.
Are you my rival for him now?
No, I'm my heterosexual energy prevents this from ever being a thing for me. I'm I already have my chosen bachelorette here. Go on.
So Shane says, you ever feel like no matter what you do, you're gonna fail? Like you're stuck in some miserable abyss and you're so deep you can't even see the light of day. Oh my. I just feel like no matter how hard I try, I'm not strong enough to climb out of that hole.
Drink the beer.
Mm-hmm. A woman after my own heart. Oh my. Just don't make it a habit. You got a future ahead of you still. Hinting at, some angst he is suffering from his as a result of his drinking problem. Well, my liver's begging me to stop. Better call it a night. Yikes. See you around, Jesse. That's the most I've ever gotten out of an encounter with Shane.
Wow. And then we pass out right here in the road drunkenly after that. Losing our money.
How the fuck did that happen? I thought I got like 50 energy from that beer.
Because time marched forward to 2 a.m.
During the event?
Yes. When you play multiplayer, the events don't stop. So, boy, our
wrap up Angus,
yeah,
dude, the ache I feel for Shane, it's just like he was put in this game just to torture me.
Oh god. Well, yeah, there's definitely a parallel there, and we can do one more day to kind of wrap up this story here, because I think we've pretty much covered the major themes of Angus. There's so much more that we could have been able to breakdown about it, but I recommend that anybody who is interested in this genre not watch this movie. Like, instead of watching this, I feel like I felt like there was a lot of stuff that kind of copied some of the themes of like Sean Astin's character in Encino Man, and instead of the creepy
We
ginger
would
kid,
highly recommend Encino Man instead.
Yes.
If you were wanting to explore some of these themes.
Yes.
In a 90s film
It's
medium.
It's way better done. Sean Astin's a far better actor, and instead of the creepy ginger kid, what you get is Pauly Shore playing the Wheeze as the sidekick. And you get a third sidekick.
Which is much more palatable.
Oh, way better.
Regardless of how you feel about Pauly Shore.
Oh, he does a much better job.
Trust me.
They're almost like rival movies, like from opposite studios, and it's just done so much better. So there's probably other coming of age stories that have been there's a lot of better movies than this one, but I just think that like that from a critic standpoint, it's worth seeing it. Just to say that you've seen, that way you can like wear a shirt that basically says like, I've seen Angus and I survived. The main actor wasn't in a lot of other things at the time. He was literally discovered in a Wendy's line of like the in-store buying, getting fast food by a bunch of movie producers who were behind him. And apparently, as the story goes, he was cracking jokes or whatever, and they say, oh my god, this is it, this is the kid we need for that movie that we want to make. And the movie itself is uninspired because it's resting on a lot of established tropes for that sort of teen coming of age story. You will actively dislike Angus this entire time. Like
Unless you're like all the critics who just couldn't get fucking enough, apparently, but...
Well, and what's wrong with them for that reading? That's why I said that not only did the people who made this movie were uninspired and phoning it in, the critics themselves don't give a shit. And like, it's like, did you watch this, or are you just like a paid shill? Like, as you're saying, you just go, yeah, like, what's this genre? Okay, I kind of half watched this while I was doing dishes, and I'm just gonna go and like say what I'm supposed to say about this story. What we took home from this was what a fucked movie Angus was, and how are we going to...
That never left me, because like I never watched it again until recently, but I did see like 5 minutes of it on TV and felt that same sick sensation. It just all came flooding back.
Why did we read it so different than all the other critics? Like, why is it that everyone liked this movie but us? And I really don't know. Is it something so superficial, like they're just shills, or or
it's gotta be that,
or are we cynics? Like, are we supposed to be saying like, oh, he's all of these things are charming, like and anybody who's 15,
the fact
16
that
years
I can't
old.
even think about the scene where he cries over the dead grandpa, does that alone make me a cynic? I guess
So. That
was so over the top. Like, how could anybody watch that and just be like, God, this movie is great?
Well, they did.
What the?
Read even the YouTube comments on some of those videos that we saw. There, people are like,
yes,
wow.
they're like crazy positive.
Yeah.
God, I loved that movie. It's a movie for NPCs, by NPCs, about NPCs.
That this is a cash grab. It's a rival studio trying to take advantage of like some other successes that were happening around this time.
It just seemed like you said, an empty cash grab, just full of like cliched tropes, bad attempts at slapstick, just like throwing whatever at the wall to see what sticks.
My biggest problem with it is that the message, I feel, was what is unhealthy for kids trying to find their way in the world. That's my main criticism, is that some poor kid in the 90s is watching this and going like, yeah, I am... There's so much wrong with me. And the answer to get over what's wrong with me is to be more like them. And that's how I'm going to win the girl and get everything that I need. And that those people are now like stuck in this permanent incel like position where it's
how many lives did this film ruin?
kids from our generation, I think, were adversely affected by this if they really believed in the message, and I'm gonna hope that they didn't.
We missed some creepy moments, like
Yeah,
between him and the mom, but like I didn't really care to get into like the Oedipal weird stuff, and it's like I don't know, maybe that would be
we could.
looking a little too hard into this like shallow shitty cash grab of a
Mhm.
90s children's film.
So I appreciate everybody staying with us to hear about this ridiculous movie. If you need to know more, it's available on Amazon. You'll have to pay them to watch it. It's not free for Prime View. Anybody interested in poorly messaged 90s teen coming of age stories should watch this and understand kind of what I believe to be a nadir of the genre and an unhealthy message. If you did like it, you might be an NPC. Okay, that's all I have to say about that.
If you believe that the person you profess to love and ache for was only placed on this earth to torture you, like and subscribe.